with who Lucifer is? Anyone? And be assured that if you do disagree, I'm going to ask you why and where we go to find out what substantiates your perspective.
So hold on. So are you saying that whoever disagrees that so that Jesus, because I know in Revelation it says Jesus is the morning star.
Right.
But do I agree with, like, in this passage 14 or, chapter 14, do I think I don't think that's talking about Jesus. I think that's...
No,
it's not. It's not.
I don't think that's our point. Yeah, for sure it's not.
No, we're not saying that it's not. What I'm saying is the premise that I'm trying to establish before we go into other passages is that Lucifer is in Isaiah 14
isn't Satan.
It's not Satan, right? It's not Satan. There's no reference whatsoever. And even if you believe it is Satan, you have to agree that it doesn't say any such thing.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to believe it by some kind of spiritual inference, have at it. But what I'm saying is nothing in there says it's Satan or the devil or a demon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Now, so it sounds like most of us are kind of like within the same atmosphere on this matter.
Not gonna lie, we're getting straight. I honestly never like to speak about this because Christians are very sensitive on this.
Yeah.
So, which is dope that we can have the discussion, but I always tend not to speak about it just because we can get really upset.
see, to me, we can't afford to do that, brother, and I'm gonna tell you the reason why.
No, I understand. Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
With the right crowd.
Right. You got to really go at it, because the thing is, if those who know better, even if you don't know what is entirely correct, we can definitely look at things and say, it's definitely not that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. You can say, I'm not sure where I am on it, but it definitely does not mention Satan. It definitely doesn't mention it being Satan or mention him at all. It doesn't.
Can I add a little bit?
Sure.
I would even go even further, as Satan is never a title, or the evil one or the serpent was never ever given a name.
Okay.
The term Satan itself is not even a name as well. It just means opposer. So actually, for example, in the Hebrew, God at one point is called Satan in the form of he's an adversary to, I think it was specifically speaking about the Babylonians. So the Satan is just mean adversary. That's why, for example, when Jesus tells Peter, "Get behind me, Satan," is because he's making himself an adversary to the mission of what Jesus came to do.
Right. And it's definitely adversary, and that's what he is, an adversary.
Yes.
So now,
can I just add that in Revelation 12:9, we do have the tie that the serpent in the garden was Satan.
Yes, Satan, that serpent of old, named the devil.
Serpent of old, yeah. So it's the only time that we see in Scripture that the serpent in the garden was actually Satan. And Revelation 12:9.
So now,
I know that somebody said like, oh, it's a title and whatever. But I do think within the garden, this isn't just a title. This is Satan who came to deceive Adam and Eve.
Right.
Yes, he's the ultimate adversary, but that's not like an actual name he was ever given. Is what
I would say it's just because in the Greek it's a Hebrew word. Yeah. So it's going to get transliterated, but it does get coined like a name because he is the adversary. You may have many adversaries, but Satan is the adversary. He's the opponent, right?
Right. And these titles that he's been given, they are descriptors of who he is and what he does. So he's been called serpent, the devil, Satan, Apollyon, the dragon, and I might be missing one. But these were
Apollyon.
Pardon me? Pardon me?
Which one is Apollyon? I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, Apollyon. That's one of his.
In the Revelation.
Yeah, it's there. He's called Apollyon as well. But so now, here's the
Can I
second
say
thing
this
that I
right
want
quick?
to. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Can I
Go
say
ahead.
this? I hate when the word devil is used because everybody, it's like, oh, the devil. It just means he's the slanderer.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Right.
so his main job is to slander believers.
Right. But here's what I want to say, because there's no need for us. We don't have to, like, he has all these different designations, right? And the reality is, if it's his name or not, for me, I don't split hairs on it. They describe his character.
Correct.
In all of these descriptors describe in totality his character.
Mm-hmm.
So when we read serpent, devil, demon, whatever, we know these words make reference to the principalities of the power in the air. That's what we're talking about. Whether it be Satan personally or whether it be one of his heralds or minions. Mm-hmm. And I think that pretty much we're all, like I said, somewhere in the same atmosphere about this whole thing. Now, what I want to bring up another aspect about Satan. Let's use that name so for conversation's sake. That people have said, and this is what they've said: he was the highest angel in heaven, mm-hmm. and he was the leader of music. Now, I'm gonna ask a question. And I'm asking this question not to be a trick question, not to trip anyone up, and not to have a perspective from where I'm not trying to understand. What I'm asking is this.
Where did they get that?
Where did they get that? Because honestly, I don't know where.
It was in Ezekiel chapter 28. I'm only after reading it a few days ago.
Okay, so
yes.
I was just about to say that. And where is it that we have the ranking of the angels? So Satan is a cherubim, which is the ranking of higher than even the seraphim. And then I think people take it from Jude. Is it Jude 8, where Satan and the Archangel Michael are arguing over the body of Moses, and he says, "I'll let God deal with you." People say that is because Michael was a lesser rank angel and couldn't deal with Satan, basically, because he was a cherubim. That could be a conspiracy. I'm just like, yeah.
No, you're right. It is clear that he was a high-ranking angel, for sure. That's clear. But before I get to that, I want to get to where it talks about him being this leader of music.
Well, Jonathan, don't you know that because he was the leader of music, that now he's in all music and you can't listen to music because Satan's in the music?
I think that's a cultural thing, man. I think that's a cultural thing because you hear it. I mean, I'm not gonna say you don't hear it in white churches, but you hear it like in black churches a lot. Like he was the leader of music, and I'm thinking
I heard that
nowhere in the scripture.
So you agree? So if there's anybody here that believes that he was this leader of music, I'm genuinely asking where this comes from in the Word of God, because
Christian mythology, that's what it is.
I've been a Christian for 42 years, and I have never seen it. I'm
not gonna lie, I think Dante's Inferno had a lot of big push toward like the Christian mythology, I would say, and has a huge influence. A lot of Christians don't know that. They just hear it in church and they just assume their pastor's right.
Right.
You know, it's people don't check the word, you know.
Right. So I mean, so is it safe to say? I mean,
I think
Romans,
I kind of see it.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead. Romans 4. Go ahead.
I see it in Ezekiel 28.
Mm-hmm. Where?
Ezekiel 28, verse 13, I think.
Yeah, so that just says that the timbrels and pipes, I believe it was prepared for him. It's a long...
That's how I've always taken it, as I was talking about Satan.
Yeah,
Well,
but I don't think that figure was ever given a name, and he's also speaking about a king.
it's
Yeah.
the king of Tyre, and it's what's known as a parallel. It's
Yes.
because Satan fits the description. So if Satan fits the description, it's good to assume that it is Satan. And also, all you guys are after speaking about Satan being this title and stuff, and you're right. So when the scriptures talk about Satan, they're more so talking about the nature. Remember, Jesus called the Pharisees a brood of vipers, right? So these things are talking about the nature that's behind it, as opposed to the single entity that's behind it. Even though that single entity might rule what's happening.
Right. I think I kind of look at it in a way as like, you know how whenever like the Bible's talking about like David or Joshua or something, and it's actually, but it sounds like it's talking about Jesus.
Right.
You know? So it's like, it's about, in the context, it's David, right? But in a spiritual, symbolic way, it's Jesus. I think these verses are kind of the same way about Satan.
So you think that because in here clearly it says in verse 12, Ezekiel 28:12, Son of man, take up this lamentation upon the king of Tyrus. Now, and then it goes into this flowery language. Okay, this language. And then it says that you know, if you read the whole thing, you are the anointed cherub that covers and all this kind of stuff, and you were perfect in all your ways from the day that you were created till iniquity was found in you. Now, when we say, if we were to say this is Satan, the devil, what aspect, and anybody can answer this, what aspect do you feel justified in making this a reference to the devil, you know, to him, especially if he's talking about the king of Tyre?
When it says that you were in the Garden of Eden with God.
Also, verse 14, where it says, you were the anointed cherub. And then I'm looking at it here. So verse 14, you were the anointed cherub. And then verse 16, by the abundance of your trading, you became filled with violence within. And then it says, therefore I cast you as a profane thing out of the mountain of God.
Right.
So go back to Isaiah 14, where he falls from heaven. And then I believe Luke chapter 10, where Jesus says, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. So it's more the thread of connection that links it together.
And the funny thing is, brother, I you know, because I think that if there was any passage that was going to convince me that there's this description of Satan, or that this description is of Satan, it would be this one here. This would be the one that I would wrestle with. This would be the one that I would wrestle with the most, one way or the other. I mean, you know, it's one of those kind of things. But this one, being the strongest sort of support for it, is why I wanted to bring this up for a reason, because of where I want to go to next. And where I want to go to next is in John chapter 8. And I'm sure some of you are going to know where I'm going. Because in John chapter 8, here's what Jesus says about the devil. He's talking to the Pharisees, and he tells them, why do you not understand my speech? Even because you cannot hear my word. And he tells them why. You are of your father, the devil. In the lust of your father, you will do. Now, here's a part that I want you to focus on. Everybody listen. When he says he, meaning the devil, he was a murderer from the beginning, and he abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Now, I want to ask Anointed One, if you're listening, if you're there.
Yeah.
He says that Jesus says that the devil was a murderer from the beginning. What does he mean?
You can take that two ways. You can take it back at the garden, when man fell. So he murdered them in a sense for not having eternal life anymore.
Okay.
Or you could take it when he is, if you could say he tempted Cain, but you can say he used Cain to kill Abel. So you could take that two ways. I mean, he calls spiritual death, or in physical, actually he calls physical death because Adam and Eve is no longer eternal.
Paz, are you there, sister? Paz, you there?
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
What do you think?
I'm really not educated on this subject. I'm just trying to take it all in. I'm actually here for decoration at this point.
All right, that's okay.
I would agree with Anointed's first point.
Which was?
That the Adam and Eve in the garden.
Yeah, that to me is where I believe the most weight is, to me. And the reason why I say that, and the reason why I kind of agree with you, Anointed One, on that one, is because he was created. And so therefore his beginning could not have been what precedes creation. But there's a lot of talk about when he was created. There's a lot of discussions about when he was created. Like God took 6 days that he spent to create everything that was created. And so at what point was Satan and other angels, when were they created? Does anybody have an idea?
Angels, that would be the day that he created the sun, moon, and stars and stuff like that.
And why would you say that?
Because he says that they will rule over the sky. And, this is something that's a big contention in scholarship. They believe in the Near East that the sun, moon, and stars are some type of angelic beings. That's why, in correlation with that viewpoint, when God tells Abraham that his generation will be like the stars in heaven, some people take that as being lifted high like the angels, where Jesus then correlates it. You'll be like angels in heaven. Or when the Psalms, I forget the number, starts speaking, saying like who made, like speaking about creation and speaking about man. I forget how it goes. I would need to get my Bible.
That's good. I like that. However, you missed one thing about the sun, the moon, the stars. When Jacob translated Joseph's dream, Joseph said, "The sun, the moon, the stars bow down to me," and Jacob said, "Do you really think your brothers, your mother, and I are going to bow down to you?" So God's chosen people are the sun, the moon, the stars, also in Scripture.
Well, Brian, I'm going to add to that. Because I think that biblical wisdom, I think what he said, I have to admit, I just learned something. And Brian, what you said, I think complements what he said. Because when you look at, like, for instance, Revelation, and when you look at old, some of the prophetical books, I believe Joel also mentions, we see this trifecta of the sun, moon, and the stars that we see over and over as its theme throughout scriptures.
Correct.
And throughout scripture, sun and the moon and the stars were always symbols representing authorities.
Correct.
Governments, magistrates, authorities. And so, to be honest with you, I like that.
Can I add a little more?
Go for it.
So, in correlation with that, some scholars also believe that those angelic beings were the ones who came pre-Noah's time when they made daughters of men, correlating that if you take Genesis 1 through 11 and you put it as a mirror, that when that happened is exactly the same moment when Sodom and Gomorrah? No, with the Tower of Babel, because the angelic, the sons of God, came down and made kids with daughters of men, and then And
You're just opening another can of worms there.
Yeah, that's a whole other ball game right there.
Yeah,
and
that's
then the
a
Sodom and
whole
Gomorrah, or sorry, the Babylon story is the reverse of that, where men were trying to enter the heavens. They try to do the reverse.
No, I would say Acts chapter 2 was the reverse of Babylon.
No. I'm
Anyways.
saying that was the reversal of the daughters of men story.
All right.
I was gonna just ask the host a question. I could be completely wrong.
Go ahead.
My brain is thinking, when God created the heavens, and since angels are heavenly beings, wouldn't that be part of that creation?
It would not be. It's not inconceivable. Yeah, this is why I'm genuinely asking.
I could be wrong. I'm just like having a guess.
Yeah. No, but you could be right.
And can I clarify?
Hold on before we get out of control. Anointed one, go ahead.
So in Hebrew and Greek, typically there's only like I think of one time I've seen this in Greek as a singular. Heaven for Hebrew and Greek is normally plural.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just referring to the sky and in the outer space, but it also can refer to the heavens as to where God resides. So I will agree with the host and just say that everything that everybody is saying, from Jacob's star, from Joseph's stars bow down, to them being created on day 2 or day 3, it all ties in, because God didn't just create the sky, but he created everything. Like, let me backtrack. Heaven is not a singular word typically in Hebrew and Greek. It's a plural. It's a word that is plural.
I see exactly what you're saying. You're saying that that when he says heaven, it's not just encompassing the atmosphere. It's encompassing heaven itself and its inhabitants. Is that safe to say what you're saying?
Yeah.
That it's host and everything that's in there. And that makes a lot of sense, because when Jesus gives a Sermon on the Mount, in the Sermon on the Mount, and he's in Matthew 6, I believe it is, when he gives the Lord's Prayer, the part of the prayer is that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And he's not just talking about heaven as a uninhabited or an inanimate place. It has to do with the intelligence that's there, that he manages there, the providential control over the beings who are there. And so I got to tell you, here's what I'm going to say to this group right now. For me, this has been one of the most eye-opening lives I've ever had. And that's the honest, I really sincerely mean that. And because I like the subject, and I know that the Bible speaks about things, and so whatever the Bible addresses, we should be able to address in a meaningful way. Yeah. And we should approach it with fear and reverence, and a holy reverence and a holy fear. And so, I just want to say at the outset, so I don't forget it at the end, that I appreciate this, because this is good for me. It's good for me. And so I like it. I'm enjoying it. Now, in 844 in John, we already addressed from the beginning. We talked about that. So this gives me a good perspective for me to be able to go and do some study on this whole thing, because I like what I'm hearing on this one. Now, here's what it also says about the devil. Besides him being a murderer from the beginning, it says that he abode not in the truth. Now, when I read that, I have a good understanding about that, because in Jude, it says that the angels did not keep their first estate, the fallen angels. So, and that aligns perfectly with that he abode not in the truth. But the tricky part here in verse 44 is what he says after. Jesus says that not only did he not abide in the truth, he says that the reason why he did not is because there is no truth in him. So, Brian, what does he mean? I pretty much understand when he says he abode not in the truth. He did not keep his first estate. That he didn't stay. He didn't abide. But it says the reason why he didn't abide is because there is no truth in him. This is something that throws me off. This is something I want to get feedback on. was because this intimates to me, and again, I could be wrong. This is for all of us to talk about. But it intimates to me that he did not, that there's some kind of way that he abode in the truth, did not continue, but it says the reason why he didn't continue is because the truth was not in him.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It wasn't in him. Does that mean it was never in him? Because we always believe, and people are always teaching, that Satan was a good angel. My question is this: was he though?
So
Just remind you of, sorry, just real quick, doesn't it remind you a little bit of Judas? Actually, you said something a little bit ago that he was a liar or a murderer from the beginning.
Right.
And isn't the same language given to Judas?
Mm-hmm.
But when you said it, it just clicked in my head. Sorry, Brian.
No, that's a good observation. I want to come back to that. But Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, so in the New King James Version, it says he doesn't stand in the truth.
Right.
Because there is no truth in him. But what I think that means is God is truth. His prophecy, especially his fulfillment, that's what truth is. And Satan doesn't abide in that. Satan doesn't stick with that. He tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden. Mm-hmm. He told her that she would become like God if she was to eat of the tree. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't true because, it wasn't true. So he doesn't stand in the truth. And there's no truth in him because the truth is God. And it's his prophecies, it's his fulfillment, which Satan does not preach.
Right, but
Can we just give Jonathan a round of applause because he's figured out how to expand himself? Can we just give him a round of applause?
Chosen always has a way of breaking up my serious moments.
If I may finish the point as well, I would like to finish it with Matthew chapter 13. The part where it speaks about the parable of the wheat and the tares, where the master sowed seed, but at night the enemy came along and sowed his seed.
Correct.
But see, here's the thing, Brian, is that in theology. I'm glad you made it up here, brother. I want to ask you this question next. I know you've been here listening. I think you've been here. Because what I'm still fuzzy about, like I get the part about what Brian said when he says that in King James it says he did not stand in the truth, he did not abode in the truth. So these are the same things. In other words, he didn't rest in the truth. He didn't find it comfortable for whatever reason. But the reason that Christ said follows right after. He didn't stand in the truth, he didn't abide in the truth, and he tells you why. And he says, because there is no truth in him. So to me, it sounds like the reason why he did not abide in the truth is because there was no truth in him in the first place. Now, if I'm reading that wrong, please feel free to add some finer points into this. Theology, what do you have to say?
Thank you for bringing me up. I don't really know if I could actually be of an aid, but I can just give some categories I think that may help.
Sure.
I mean, first off, I think when it says to bolster Brian's point is to say when he doesn't stand into the truth, it's referring to his nature, his ontological disposition. All that just simply means it's not within his nature to stand in the truth. And so, but what I think you're referring to is you're using logical deduction backwards, in the sense that you're kind of hinting to the efficient cause of him falling in the first place. Is that fair to say?
It is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so me personally, I'm really careful to do logical deduction backwards in protology, or, like first principles, because it's just, I mean, it's to some degree it is speculative, but to your point, I do think it does to some degree have something to do with it. And I would this is where, as a good Reformed person, I'm just going to throw up my hands and blame God's decree.
That's chickening out there, theology.
It is, but I do think he is hearkening back to a past reality that has reference to the present reality in which he's giving that word. And also, you have the law. You cannot climb past the limitations of your own nature, right? That's logic, that's law, that's basic ontology.
See, one thing that I understand, ontological arguments. I understand reasoning, whether it be circular, whether it be linear. I understand these things, right? But here's the thing. I don't think that a Christian has to know all these things in order to make sense of the truth. I just don't. I'm one of those people, and I'm not slamming you on this one. I'm just saying that I don't think that we need to know the DNA or the anatomy of Hebrew or Greek to understand the truth. Now, I'm saying that this may come in and may be necessary in some loftier themes, and God usually blesses certain people with the ability to take these complex things and distill them down into ways that people can consume them. Mm-hmm. Now, when I see this, I clearly, like none of us so far have disagreed with the fact that Satan or the devil did not abide in the truth. Everyone here agrees. That's one thing that is consistent. But the problem that we have and where we become fragmented in our understanding of this is when Christ gives the reason why he doesn't abide in the truth. Why? And he says, because there's no truth in him. So somehow, and to me, when I read that doesn't, to me, require me to come up with a sentence construction to find a way to make abiding not in the truth be as simple as he was a good angel that fell. It appears to me in theology, and I'll give you this. I could be totally wrong, but it sounds to me that on some level that I don't understand, Satan was never good. Mm-hmm. I don't see anything in the scripture that ever says he was good.
Correct.
Ever.
Yeah, so you are correct. You do not need to understand formal laws of logic,
right,
or ontological, the formal.
Right.
However,
the structure, the anatomy
you don't need to know those, especially able to articulate them, but
mm-hmm.
you are utilizing them in an informal fashion.
I agree.
You don't need to say it fancily, but the reason I said God's decree is because I am saying that God decreed his ontological nature.
I agree.
So if you're going to say I think God made him that way. Now again, I don't think God is the author of evil. I don't think he was the efficient cause. We don't got to get into all that.
Yeah, but you read the King James.
well, even there. But yeah. So but what I'm saying is, if I'm going to logic backwards and I'm going to take that line of thinking, I think God created him to be that way for his sovereign purpose. Like he decreed it. So I wouldn't disagree. Maybe he was a piece of work the whole time.
Can I put my 2 cents in?
Sure. Go ahead, Biblical.
I think the story of the Bible, so I think too many Christians want everything answered. And I think the story of the Bible doesn't want to give you an answer. Right. Because it's not the point. It's just introducing what was already there. Evil is present in the Garden of Eden, but what's so beautiful about it, it's that, remember, we're creating the image of God, and God said that we are supposed to rule over the beasts of the sea and the animals on the land as well. That's our vocation as being human. And what's so very interesting in these narratives of Satan being introduced in the garden, it's so interesting that he's always represented as an animal-like creature.
Right.
He's represented as a serpent. Mm-hmm. And then what's so